Welcome back to Healthier Vibrations. I'm Christie Smirl. I'm a nurse practitioner, a doctorate of Ayurvedic medicine, as well as a yoga teacher trainer. And today I wanted to talk to you about the concept called Ahimsa. Now, in yoga teacher training, we understand that there's 8 limbs of yoga. And amongst those 8 limbs, there are what are called the Yamas. Yamas are things that we try our best to abstain from. And one of those yamas is called Ahimsa. Now, Ahimsa can be found in the writings of Patañjali's sūtras. It can also be found in most spiritual practices across the globe. But why is it so important to look at the concept of Ahimsa? Ahimsa meaning non-violence. Non-violence to ourselves, non-violence to others. One of the reasons why Ahimsa is so important is it helps keep ourselves energetically clean and in balance. It also helps us maintain a more aligned pathophysiology between our body and our mind. So let's just talk about the concept of anger for a moment. Now, we know that when we are angry, we often have violent thoughts or violent concepts. Not only violent thoughts, violent words, violent thinking. So let's talk about violence for just a moment. Let's talk about anger for just a moment. When we are angry, when we embrace anger, when we embody anger, this has a very specific cascade of physiological events that happen. We understand that when we are angry, our deep brain thinks that something is very wrong. So if you look around you, and there's actually nothing at that exact moment to be angry about. It is a perceived anger or a real anger. What happens during this event? We have a whole chain of reactions that occur within our body. Our deep brain sends signals to our fight-flight response or our stress response system, affecting our central nervous system. As the central nervous system has this alert, our breathing changes, our musculoskeletal blood flow changes, the blood flow to our gastrointestinal system or gut changes, which of course affects our digestion later on down the line. And it also causes a change in the types of hormones, neurotransmitters that we are sending out into our bloodstream and into our body. But another important thing that we need to realize is when we are embracing or embodying the vitiation, the disturbance of anger for a prolonged period of time, or sometimes just for a short period of time, it changes the way our subtle body is vibrating. So let's look at the different types of ways that we can look at our lives and how we can incorporate the concept of Ahimsa. First of all, physical violence is obvious. Do we go around hitting, punching, scratching, stabbing, shooting people? Well, I would hope not. Now, some people say, what if it is in self-defense? That's a whole different subject that we're not going to discuss today. But let's also take a look at self-physical harm. Self-physical harm, we have the obvious things like self-mutilation, cutting, trying to commit suicide. We also have forms of self-harm that comes in a more insidious nature, like addictions that we fail to address in our lives, or neglect of ourselves, neglect to eat as healthy as we can, neglect to treat our bodies as healthy as we can. Now let's also take a look at Ahimsa from an emotional standpoint or from a verbal standpoint. So we understand that Ahimsa can also be causing direct emotional harm to somebody, emotional abuse, screaming at somebody, calling them names, flipping them off, degrading them. We want to avoid doing this. We should see the divine in each of us and treat each other with love and respect whenever possible. Now, what about when we have that justified feeling like, well, this governmental system or body of people or person is doing this, that, and that, and that. All right, I understand the anger, of course. I understand the frustration or maybe the fear. But at what point do we let go of that vibration of anger or thinking in a violent way? Constantly saying, rah, 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 rah. You know what I'm talking about. Because we have to realize that this looping pattern causes a whole chain of reaction within us. It is harming us inside. It's like drinking the poison that you wished for somebody else. Let's also talk about Ahimsa in the standpoint of how we think about emotionally and how we treat ourselves emotionally. Take, for instance, first thing in the morning when you wake up. What do you say to yourself in the mirror? What do you say to yourself about your day? Do you say things like, oh, there's a whole laundry list of negative self-talk. This is a form of ahimsa, a form of himsa, which would be violence towards ourselves. Violent in the way we think about ourselves, harming, negative, degrading. We want positivity in our lives, positivity in our arc field, positivity in the vibrations that go out and provide prana to our entire body and our subtle body. The way we think about ourselves is also highly contributing to the way other people think of us. Even if you don't say the words out loud, you are still vibrating and embodying the things negative that you say about yourself. So, one last thing I wanted to talk about. I'm going to try to make these regular education sessions short, simple, to the point, less than 10 minutes. Let's talk about ahimsa in the standpoint of compassion. Having compassion for others instead of anger and frustration or violence. But let's also talk about having compassion and being of service. It's one thing not to be violent. It's one thing not to be hostile emotionally or verbally. But it's another thing to go the extra distance and be of service. Be of service to animals in need. Be of service to people in need. Be of service to friends in need. Be of service to yourself when in need. So I hope this concept stirs some thinking for you. I welcome your comments. I welcome your input. And if you're interested in learning more about yoga and Ayurveda, the Healthier Vibrations Learning Center has many certifications and education programs. Some are 50 hours, some are all the way up to 300-hour certification programs in yoga. So visit healthiervibrations.com, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit subscribe, click like, and share so that other people can receive this education as well. Have a wonderful day, everybody.